things we mean to say to the people we love that we carry for years without saying. Not because we don't feel them, not because the words aren't there, but because daily life is so full and the feeling is so constant, and there always seems to be another moment coming when the saying will be easier. And so it waits. In a drawer, in a thought, in a quiet that never quite finds its voice. Doris Day was, for much of the 1950s and 1960s, the most popular actress in America. The movies she made, bright, warm, enormously charming, gave audiences something they deeply wanted in that particular era. The sense that the world was a place where good things happened to good people, and where the difficulty underneath the surface was not the final word. Her screen persona was sunshine itself, quick to laugh, quick to forgive, reliably warm. And there was truth in it, because she was, by most accounts, genuinely warm. The smile was real. The kindness was real. But the life behind the smile was considerably more complicated than the movies suggested. She had been married young, and the marriages had not been simple. Her son Terry was born when she was 17, and she raised him through the complicated years of becoming famous while also becoming a mother, a particular combination that most people experience in only one direction. She loved him completely, and the relationship between them was real and close. But it was also, like all real relationships, one that accumulated its own specific history, moments of distance and closeness, things said that couldn't be unsaid, and things that should have been said and weren't. She talked, in her later years, about the particular challenge of expressing certain things to the people closest to you. Not the general warmth, she was generous with that, and it came easily. But the specific, direct declaration of what someone meant. The willingness to say, not in the form of presence or care, or the ordinary accumulation of doing things for someone, but in actual words, "This is what you are to me. This is what having you in my life has meant. This is what I want you to know before too much more time passes without my having said it." There was, by various accounts, a letter, written in a quiet moment when the feeling was clear and the words came in a way they often didn't in conversation. Folded, sealed, waiting to be sent. And then the waiting stretched, and the moment passed, and the letter stayed where it was. Not because she didn't mean it, but because the words, once in the drawer, seemed like they could wait a little longer until the time was more right, until the saying of them wouldn't feel strange, until something made it easier. That drawer. Most of us have one, in some form. Not a literal drawer, maybe, but some place where the things we mean to say are being kept, waiting for the moment that will finally make them feel safe to send. Maybe you have something like that. Maybe there is someone in your family, a child, a sibling, a parent still living, a person who has been in your life for so long that the weight of the relationship makes certain things harder to say directly, to whom you have something like a letter waiting. Not necessarily a literal one, but the feeling of it, the specific, particular thing you want them to know, the version of what they mean to you that you haven't quite put into words, or that you've put into words and then kept. The thing you say, in some form, when you're driving alone and thinking about them. but have not yet said to them. The reason it waits is almost always the same. It feels too large to say simply, or too vulnerable to say without knowing how it will be received, or too strange in the context of a relationship where certain things are simply felt rather than spoken. The people who are closest to us are sometimes the hardest to speak to directly, precisely because what they mean is so real and so central that putting it into words feels like it could never be enough. But here is what the unsent letter actually does. It keeps the feeling private, known only to you, not to them. And the person who needed to receive it, who would have been moved by it, who would have carried the knowing of it with them, doesn't have it. They have your presence and your care, and all the ways you show what you feel through what you do. But they don't have the direct words, and the direct words are a different thing. They land differently. They are remembered differently. They become the thing someone holds in mind long after the ordinary presence has faded. Doris Day's warmth was one of the defining qualities of her public life. But what she understood in her more private moments was that warmth expressed in general terms is not the same as love expressed specifically. The general warmth says, "I am a warm person, and I extend that warmth to you." The specific word says, "You in particular are what I mean. You are the reason." And the difference between those two things, one of which we tend to manage fairly well, and one of which we tend to save for a better moment, is not small. What is the specific thing you want someone in your life to know? Not in general terms. Specifically. What have they been to you? What difference has their presence made? What do you want them to carry with them, the way you carry the things people you loved said to you, long after this ordinary week has passed? Maybe this is a week to let that thing out of the drawer. Not necessarily in a letter. A letter is one form. A conversation is another. A phone call where you say the thing you've been meaning to say. A moment at dinner where you put down the ordinary business of the meal and look at someone and say, "I want you to know what you mean to me." Not perfectly, not with everything worked out in advance, just honestly, just the specific, direct thing. The people who have received that kind of direct saying from someone they love remember it. It stays. It becomes part of how they understand themselves and their worth. It is a gift that costs nothing except the willingness to say it. And the willingness is the only thing standing between the feeling and the sending. Doris Day's letter, whatever it had contained, was an act of love that was real even in the drawer. She felt it. She wrote it. She meant it. But the person it was meant for didn't have it. And that gap between what is felt and what is sent, between what is written and what is received, is one of the more unnecessary kinds of gap in a life. Because the thing was there. The love was real. The only thing missing was the sending. Send it, in whatever form is available to you. This week, not when the moment is perfect, not when you find exactly the right words. Now, with what you have, to the person who needs to receive it. So take a slow breath and think of the person, the specific one, who has the unsent letter. And consider what it would mean to them to receive it, to know directly, specifically, in actual words, what they are to you. That is the gift Doris Day understood, but sometimes kept in the drawer. You don't have to do the same. The letter is ready. It just needs to be sent. There is one more thing worth sitting with here. Something about what happens on our side of the sending. What happens to us when we finally say the thing we've been carrying. Because most of us, when we think about the unsent letter, think about the effect it will have on the recipient, about how they will receive it, about whether the saying will be welcome or strange or too much or not enough. We think about their experience. We almost never think about our own. But saying the thing you've been carrying changes something in you. Not just in them. The weight that the carrying created, the quiet background pressure of something meant and not said, lifts when the saying finally happens. Not completely, and not instantly, but something releases. Something that has been held in a state of incompletion becomes complete. And that completion, the knowledge that you said it, that the person knows, that nothing was left entirely unsaid, is its own form of peace. Doris Day spent her later years very quietly, far from the world that had known her name, devoted to her animals and her memories, and the particular peace of a life that had simplified. And in those years, the things she said she most valued were the ones that had been real. The relationships in their actual texture. The love in its specific expressions. The moments when what she felt and what she said were the same thing. Those moments were the ones she could carry without weight. They were already complete. The things we carry without weight are the things we've said. The things we carry with weight are the things we haven't. Both are still available to you. The weight can still be set down. The letter can still be sent. And the peace that comes from saying what you mean to the person you mean it to is waiting on the other side of the sending.